say, if I had my AirPods on me, I'd give them to you, but they're in my room.
Support.
Welcome to Ask a Witch, a podcast fueled by the curiosity of listeners like you. Join our host as she discusses various aspects of witchcraft and spirituality with intellectual and authentic members of the metaphysical community. This podcast is made possible by Blessed Bee Tea and Apothecary, a one-stop witch shop nestled in downtown Traverse City, Michigan. And now your host, the bewitching Bellamy Black.
Hello. Hi, guys, and welcome to Ask a Witch. This is kind of a bonus episode for us, and will lead into season 2 eventually. I'm Bellamy Black, and in this podcast, we explore a variety of topics sent in by listeners like you. This episode is extra special because we are coming to you live from ConVocation in Ypsilanti, Michigan. I am honored to have one of the board members of ConVocation here. This is Meg Raffoon. Thank you for being here, Meg.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
I'm really honored to have you as our guest. You're pretty badass, so I'm really stoked about this. This is going to be a good conversation, educational for a lot of people. I have a little bio on Meg here. She's a board member of the Magical Education Council. She was raised in a diverse multi-faith community on Long Island, New York, and has an academic background in history and anthropology. She pursued her PhD at the University of Michigan, focusing on history and alchemy. How cool is that? Meg frequently presents on her scholarly research into alchemy and Hermetic traditions across various spiritual practices. Since 2010, she has been a proud resident of Detroit. Hell yeah, it takes a special person.
Love the city.
And I love it. It's awesome. Where she lives with her cat, Puck.
Puck.
I love the name Puck.
Showed up at my door.
I love it. And on Friday the 13th.
Yes. We have a new one. His name's Ghost. Just showed up.
On any special day?
Nope, just right before Thanksgiving.
Just right on time.
Yep.
Perfect. I love that. Ghost and Puck. Aw. Since we're in the live setting, let's take a moment to refresh everybody about what Ask a Witch is all about. So this podcast is fueled by the curiosity of listeners like you. My name is Bellamy Black. I am an ordained witch, a Reiki master, an herbalist, and the owner of Blessed Bee Tea and Apothecary in Traverse City, Michigan. Our store has become a hub for the Northern Michigan community where people can gather, grab supplies, and ask questions. We believe that if one person has a question, many others probably do too. That idea, along with my own journey of overcoming imposter syndrome and stepping into my power as a spiritual guide, has pushed me to start this podcast. We don't shy, and just a fair warning, we don't shy away from difficult or taboo topics. So we talk about sex, drugs, Satanism, all that kind of stuff too. Occasionally we cuss. Occasionally my sound guy throws a nice little meow in when I say the F word, which is pretty.
I'm from New York.
Kind of like.
I'm gonna try to tone it down.
please don't feel like you have to censor yourself. He's really good at doing all that kind of stuff. He's obviously very interested in the sound stuff, which we really love. Thank you, Chase. Thank you for being here. Yeah, you're awesome. Now, Meg, I want to hear a little bit more from you. Where did you grow up, and where did your journey into witchcraft and spirituality begin?
Sure. So I was born in Northeast Ohio, but I was a refugee of Ohio, as many. Sorry, being a Michigander now, I have to make fun of my birthplace. We moved when I was 4 to Long Island for my dad's job, and I grew up on the beach on the North Shore of Long Island. So picture a rocky, pebbly beach with softer waves like the Great Lakes, but between 2 bays. And 2 farms on the street, built before the American Revolution. And I was an hour into Manhattan, but living in a fishing village on Long Island where you had to pay attention to the tides. So how do you get into this? Well, when a storm surge happens at high tide and you can't get home, and you get home and home has changed because a nor'easter just carved out half your beach, you kind of get in awe of the nature you see.
Yeah.
And so getting to see sea life every day, wildlife, and then hop a train and you're in the most diverse, crazy city with people from everywhere, and you're growing up with people from every kind of religion, speaking many languages. I think you can't help but see the beauty in all kinds of different approaches, and then I am just a nerd. And so I started studying all of it and talking to people, and I was just drawn to folk who saw the world a little bit differently.
Yeah, I love it. What a great dichotomy, having that like that natural world, that earthly perspective, and then stepping into the city and seeing what humans or earthly humans have done to create, you know, a modern metropolis. And again, diversity is also awesome too. My friend and I were just talking about how like even northern Michigan we're struggling with the diversity up there greatly, and so I love coming down here and being able to like converse with other people with like different mindsets. And so that's really a blessing to be able to go and see so many different. I mean, New York is like.
Yeah, New York is a different place.
Yeah.
But I mean, like even like my neighbor was Turkish, and so I grew up speaking Turkish and eating Turkish food and like learning differently. And we had evil eye Turkish eye beads like were just given to me and explained to me by his nanny, and like you just grow up with that. And then like next door is the Italian Catholics, and there's a Jewish family, and then there's a family that hung their petticoats in code to warn George Washington of where the redcoats were as a spy ring that your neighbors ran in the Revolution. And like you can't help but become a little bit anthropologist, a little bit historian, and then just absolutely fascinated by any culture. You know, we grew up with a lot of Asian friends, a lot of Muslim friends, a lot of, you know, so you grow up with it and you think, okay, teach me more, tell me everything.
Yeah.
And you just seek more and more paths, you know?
Yeah, it's a perfect storm.
Yeah.
I love it. That's really cool. That's really awesome. How would you like identify your spiritual process? Or like, I'll preface this. I call myself a free range heathen. Is like what I
love
call
it.
Like that's like the best I can come up with.
I'll tell you, it depends on my mood.
Sure.
And I say that only because I'm a difficult human being. I just gave my talk on alchemy, so my discipline in history was like about alchemists and how they practiced and who paid them and why. And as I did that, I found out more and more that I am an alchemist. Like so much of what I do is written to what they do. But my favorite answer to give is that I'm a late Renaissance Epicurean pantheist.
Nice.
Which I'll unpack that real quick for you. It means like
That's hard to fit on a bumper sticker.
yeah, you can't really like just tagline that. But like Epicurus is kind of like post-Stoicism. The idea like Stoics would tell you that the path to wisdom comes through deprivation, right? Lucretius comes along and he says, no, it comes through deprivation, meditation on an idea, and then experience of that idea. Or one of our college professors at my tiny no-name like school that no one's ever heard of said that like you would meditate on strawberries all week while fasting and then take one bite of a perfect strawberry, and that is Epicureanism. And then they got a hold of it in the Renaissance, and they were like, yeah, except screw the whole week of not eating. Let's just eat strawberries, you know? And so like I joke that I'm a late Renaissance Epicurean, and I'm a pantheist because I believe in in the spirit of all things, whether it's like the microphones we're speaking into, the energy between us, there's a spirit in all things. Or I like to say I'm a generous hedonist because I like experiencing things, but I want you to too.
Aww. That's awesome. That's a lot of fun, and like I think that's well, one, I'll say that so often we try to fit ourselves into boxes, and it's interesting when you find a box that you're like, this is like the closest I'm gonna get to like what I feel and who I am. And
people would say I'm an eclectic, right? And I was Christopher Penzak was speaking earlier today. He's one of our speakers, one of our big headlining speakers.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's delightful. And he said, I'm going to steal a quote from him. He said that he is a spiritual scavenger, you know, and if it works, he's going to use it.
Yeah.
But he's rooted in very deep initiatory disciplines. I am not.
Yeah.
I'm rooted in academia. I'm rooted in some martial arts practices and some other practices, but I don't, as a magic practitioner, if I had to describe how do I do it, I'd say I'm an alchemist.
Yeah.
But that's because I've studied it, I know it. That's the thing that I can root in, but I'm not going to pretend I have a bunch of letters after my name and perfection and all of these. Like, I've not gone through an initiatory thing, but I've probably read it in Latin. You know?
Perfect. Yeah, I think everybody's pagan and like metaphysical, spiritual path, whatever that might be. I always say like there's many paths up the mountain, right? So I think whatever path that seems fitting and suiting for you is the most appropriate path. So for some it's an initiatory path, and for some it's just studying and it's just learning, and some it's just doing, right? So so I love and welcome that, and part of our podcast here is also just like giving people permission to be magical.
Yeah.
Because I think so often people are like, oh, I don't want to mess it up. I never got I never got an initiation, so therefore I don't count as a witch. And it's like, no, like let's kind of break some of those stereotypes and remind people that we are all powerful magical beings at our core. Thank you for sharing that and your history with us. And then, how has your academic background shaped your spiritual path? So you picked alchemy as a major.
I did. Well, the history of alchemy. I'm ABD, so I'm not doctor, I'm professor. Let's split hairs a little bit there. But so I went into history again. When you grew up where I did, you can't help but be a historian because you're living around it. Went to college, did an anthropology degree, did a history degree, went on to grad school to do my PhD, started doing like British war history of like the medieval period, but right before I applied, I went to Prague with my choir director who was Czech. And I fell in love with the Czech world. Like, it was an amazing place. And when you're there, you can't help but learn about alchemists. And I'd already had all these like alchemical posters on my wall of my college dorm, having no idea that I was going to do this. So it's very funny looking back at old pictures. And I came home and I went to my first grad school and I said, hey, I want to switch up. I want to move my discipline a little bit farther forward in time and into the history of religion, science, and magic. And they said, no. And I said, bye. So I left my scholarship, I left everything, and I took a year off, taught in New York for a while, and then came to the University of Michigan to do my PhD in the history of religion, science, and magic. And so with alchemy as my dissertation topic. So doing that, then I got to go back to Prague and study in the archives. So I studied in multiple archives in the Czech Republic. I've studied at Oxford at the Bodleian. I've studied at the British Library, Vienna. And so it was an amazing time to go and translate old documents. So when people are like, what's your authority about John Dee? I'm like, I've held his diary in my hands. I've smelled the smoke from it from when his neighbors tried to burn his house down. Like, and there's something very rooted in that, touching an old document that's written by an alchemist about him being pissed at another alchemist because they got into an argument and the other one peed on his experiment. And you get to like read that from the female foreperson of the laboratory writing to the Lord who was paying them all. And so it's this, people are like, oh yes, this very serious world. I'm like, it's yes, right up until these like very weird things happen in the history. So how can you help but be charmed by it?
Right. Yeah, I can just see our listeners just like drooling, right? Like, I mean, so many of us are academics at heart too. That's why we love religion and spirituality. And there's so many, this whole world of paganism, witchcraft, spirituality has so many different paths and directions that anyone can go to. And the best that you have to do is just like keep learning. And we say this all the time, like knowledge is power. Yeah. Right. And so, but it's always like, I think one of the biggest things that especially like younger neo-pagans are looking for is like, they're looking for that document. They're looking for that alchemical diary that they can flip through and find the true magic, and they're settling with whatever they can find at BAM Books, and like
I have a mean reputation because I have an academic background. Just finished my talk a few minutes ago, and one of the people at it said, "Hey, how do you feel about Full Metal Alchemist?" And
because I was going to ask.
No, he asked me, and he was so shy. And I taught when I was at University of Michigan. I taught a freshman writing class called Witches, Alchemists, and the Golem in History and Modern Pop Culture.
Perfect.
And the entire point of the class was for that question. And it was, if you see something in video games, you see a movie, you see something, and it inspires you to want to know the history, let me teach you how to find it in historical record.
Yeah.
And now we're not talking about spiritual practice here. I'm speaking about historical discipline. And that there is no wrong way to get interested in something.
Right.
My favorite paper, by the way, from that class, the title, it was about robot apocalypse and why we think that could happen. It traced it back to ancient Greece. And the paper title was From Curios to Killbots, Why Your Grandfather Clock Won't Kill You, But Your Roomba Will.
Yeah.
And it was an amazing paper about like what makes a machine scary versus not scary. So when I hear a question about Full Metal Alchemist and a kid saying like, is that wrong of me to ask? And I say, no. Full Metal Alchemist has more Eastern alchemy in it than Western in some ways. Yeah. And it isn't accurate from the point of view of like a historical record, but it has such neat overtones of it and so many things in it about like it takes good pieces of it, and it's an entertaining format.
Yeah.
And I said, so what's my feeling on it? It's a cool show.
Yeah.
It's got neat messaging. And if that's how you find your path to alchemy, cool.
Yeah. Great.
There's no wrong way. And so like I love the pop culture references into it. Where I get mean, like I said, is that I will then say, where are your footnotes? Like if you're going to tell me that it's from authority, then show me the authority.
Yeah.
Preferably in Chicago Turabian style. Thank you. Sorry, my partner and I have a big argument about citation methodology. But the other side of it is, if you say, I don't know, but I think, then I don't need your footnotes. You've just revealed to me,
opinion.
or, hey, I tried this and it works. Great. That's wonderful. I'm not an authoritarian person in that way. I'm just deeply disciplined as a historian. And then the rest of it is me making stuff up because it works or because it doesn't. And so for me, it's that eclectic approach with, if you're going to say it's from discipline, show it. If you're going to say it's experimental, then great. If you're going to say I was inspired by a cartoon, great.
Yeah.
Like, let's go. Let's find the ways in. So.
Yeah, I love the baby steps into like the magical world too, and and there is so much in pop culture, and I just like ragged on banned books, but or Five Below, or I remember years ago there was a tarot deck that they were selling at Sephora, and Reddit like blew up. They were like, how dare they sell this, and like who's gonna buy this? And I think there was a bundle of sage in it too, so they were like, where's this sage coming from?
Yeah.
And, and all this stuff. But people were just pissed about it. And I like took this unpopular opinion of, little Becky, who got a gift card from grandma, can go to Sephora and buy that tarot deck because grandma doesn't know that she's buying a tarot deck.
And she might live in like a neighborhood or an area that doesn't have a shop like yours, where
Right.
because one of my first entrees in was in Port Jefferson, New York, a little touristy area, had 2 crystal shops, and that's where I got to buy $2 publications written by people and start learning. And I bought my first Llewellyn books, and then I went, there's no footnotes, and you've got your things like that. But I'd rather get more people having access.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I mean, yes, you can make a very good argument for proper sourcing, for ethical sourcing, and of course that's a conversation worth having.
100%.
But if you can get Becky and Joe and all the different kids out there into it who then grow up to be ethical sourcers, then isn't that better than not?
Right.
And we don't have to have a perfect path.
Right.
I don't believe in a perfect path. So it's like, I love that there is that, and same thing when I'm in the goth subculture and people are like, oh, but they found it watching like some sort of pop star. And you're like, yes. And now they're at the club dancing and, having fun and doing a thing. And why do I care if they came in later? Or like, please let's stop with this whole like, gatekeeping, doorkeeping way of doing things. Welcome them with open arms.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I think that, I want to get into more about like gatekeeping and stuff like that too with you. I want to before we do that, I want to get into our listener letter. So our podcast is fueled by listeners, so they send us all these really great letters, and so I want to get into that.
My lady, a message has arrived for you.
Awesome. I love it. Let's see. One of the biggest themes in both my shop and ConVocation is community. So today's letter speaks directly to that. And it says, Dear Bellamy, I've been on my witchy path for a while now, but I feel like I'm walking it alone. I don't know where to find people who share my beliefs, and honestly, I'm a little nervous about putting myself out there. How do I find a community that's safe, welcoming, and real? So I know that's a big theme for ConVocation here.
This year especially.
Yeah, I mean, I think community, especially this year is like such a big thing. And I've seen that in my store too. I've seen people who have been lurking on the outskirts who are like, all right, now I need it. Like now we're here and now I'm showing up and I'm going to be here for it. And what's your take on that? Like, what's your take on?
It's a great question because I understand, I can hear, and maybe I'm reading into it, I can hear in there the fear of what if I ask somebody and they're mean or they're not inclusive, or, they start talking about high level stuff, and I don't understand it and I feel, out of place. I would think of seeking a witchcraft community the same way that you seek a therapist or a partner or friends. You try out a bunch of them.
You got to date them.
You date them, right?
Yeah.
You interview them, you check it out, and you walk in. The best advice I can give to anybody seeking anything is know your own worth. You don't have to take what anybody tells you or gives you. It doesn't mean you're entitled to anything. It just means you are allowed to say, that doesn't sound like it's for me.
Right.
Like you sell teas, right? You may serve me a tea and I may try it and say, that's a little too tangy for me, or I don't like the note in that, but I really like this other thing. And now you've learned a thing about how to recommend the next tea to me.
Yeah.
Or you could choose to be like, well, then you just don't understand teas and you're an idiot, and like,
yeah.
But that's more about who you are than it is about who I am and my taste in tea. So
Right.
my thing is anybody out there who's trying to do it, find people who resonate with you. I walked into a shop, I was trying to gather rocks for our ritual at opening from Lake Huron, and I forgot that we had an ice storm. And hey guys, it's when the shores of the Great Lakes are icy, you can't get rocks from them, I found. But there was a witchcraft shop directly across from the beach that I'd wanted to check out. And I walked in and I told them my story. I immediately made fun of myself. And they were delightful. It's called Moongate. And they were so nice to me. And then I bought a beautiful necklace from them and we talked for a good hour. And I saw so many people walk in there, people who had some mental health issues, people who had emotional health issues. They also have a cat rescue. I watched people walk in and be treated so well.
Yeah.
But we talked about shops that we'd been to in Salem or New Orleans or other places that's not the case.
Yeah.
So find your shop, find your people, go in, and if they don't treat you well or you don't feel good there, find another one. And if you can't, that's where the age of the internet is your friend.
True.
And people can be jerks on the internet. Great, don't talk to them.
Yeah.
Because you can find our community and we will talk to you nicely.
Yeah.
We will bring you in. We will be kind. And so I'd say date them the same way that you would date a person, or shop for a good hair salon, or shop for, like, you find the places that fit you. And just like after you go to a hair salon, a bar, a restaurant, and you go, hey, that's not for me, I'm going to go to the next one. It's the same with any of these communities. Find the one that feels, be a little bit of a Goldilocks about it.
Yeah,
Which one fits
absolutely.
just right?
Yeah, I do think it's important. And you said, know yourself before walking in. And I really think that is probably such a building block for everybody, is to just know yourself. Like, if you want to find a happy relationship, know yourself in any kind of way or any kind of place. And sometimes it takes a little exploration. Sometimes it takes a little experimenting, which is fine too. But, I do think that dating your metaphysical shop is a really great idea.
Well, the other thing about it too is, like, most people don't marry the first person they date, right? And so that doesn't make the first person they date bad or the experience bad. It's part of your journey. So you may find a group and that may serve you now. 3 years from now, you may need to branch out to another group. That doesn't make the first one bad necessarily. So forgive yourself, forgive the people around you for being what they are, where they are, and the pieces will fit together or they won't, but don't reject everything just because you outgrow it. Don't feel like you've got to find the first shop or the first group you find doesn't have to be everything. They have to be right enough.
Yeah.
And then you can grow into, because you'll meet other people through that, you'll branch out.
Yep.
And that'll be fine too. So, like, that's the other thing. Don't seek perfection. It feels good. I like it.
Yeah.
And that's good enough to start.
Yeah, exactly. I also I love that this shop that what was it called?
Moongate, yeah.
Moongate, and here in Ypsilanti?
No, it's in Port
It's
Huron.
in
So
Port Huron?
it's right up on Lake Huron.
Great.
And there again, in like that's an area where there's maybe one shop for people to walk into.
Yep.
In Ypsi, there's a million shops.
Yeah.
It's like we have so many and they support each other and it makes a big magical community.
I
In
love that.
Detroit, we have got a ton.
Yeah.
Up there, it's a lot like closer to Traverse
Traverse
City, where
City.
you guys don't have a million options.
Yeah.
And so this couple who run it are trying very hard to make a space for people. And they're surrounded by people of other politics than them, other religions
Yeah.
than them. And so, like, thank God they're good people
Yeah.
who are trying.
Yeah.
But, like, you may walk into a shop that feels squicky. Don't go back.
Yeah. Then you don't have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've tried to make it a point to make our space safe and inviting for anybody from all walks of life. And we that's part of our mission statement. So I don't care your age, your ability, or, I really don't even care. Like, I might struggle or have some thoughts or opinions about political affiliations, but I think we're all ascending, right?
Sure.
Some of us are ascending at what feels like a quicker rate than others. But But we're all working on it. We're all working on getting better, and we're all just people. Like,
Yep.
and actually what we are is just divine spirits having a human experience. And
I think we're divine spirits walking around in really cool meat suits.
Meat suits, for sure. Yes. Yep. And it's tricky out here.
It's very tricky.
Like, it's rough. Like, the human experience has challenges, and we all face these challenges. So, like,
we do.
let's just not be a dick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like bottom line.
Yeah. Walk in and be kind, and and when you're not, own it. Say I'm sorry. Mean it. Change your behavior.
I'm interested in your opinion. Like, I have walked into shops where I feel like the shop owners or the shop employees are assholes. Like, what's like, what's the Meg take on that?
So I'm older than I act, and older than I look. And I mentioned the goth subculture. My anthropology thesis was on authenticity as it's gauged in goth spaces versus goth online spaces.
That's so cool.
So like, using the work of Walter Benjamin, go ahead, laugh. This is hyper academic,
I love
but
it.
in goth clubs. What I found was that you could walk into a goth club wearing reasonably dark colors, and most people are going to assume you belong. But you go online, and some 12-year-old is going to tell you you're not goth enough because you said the wrong name of a Bauhaus song, and you're like, are you? What the heck? And read Benjamin, you'll understand why. It has to do with distance from the locus of the community. But I see the same thing in witchcraft shops, or salons. That's my favorite. You go in, and if no one will look at you, I'm not getting my hair done there. If you're gonna be too snobby to even look at me, or like I'm too cool to serve you, great. Then I don't want to talk to you. I'm not gonna beg for your attention.
Right.
The Meg take on is a hot take, which is like, listen, either I don't need you to be my best friend. But if you're in business and you want me to patronize that business, act like it.
Yeah.
You don't beg me for money. Don't act like you don't need my money. Just make eye contact and be reasonably nice.
Yeah.
And so, like, when I find people who go the extra mile, who are willing to talk, then it becomes a magical exchange. Then it's that really cool thing. People who are closed off to that because they're in their own story and they don't want you part of their story. They don't want anybody part of their story. Great.
Yeah.
Let's just not be part of each other's story. But I'm not going to come back there, and I'm not going to recommend people to go there. And I mean, I literally just shouted out a shop I've been to one time because they made me feel good.
Yeah. That's where you want to keep going.
And like, that's it. I'm sure people feel the same about your shop. They come in, they feel good, then they want to come back. But if you have somebody working at your shop who rolls their eyes at people and is like, "Oh, you haven't read Crowley," then they're not coming back.
Yeah.
And so, like, you have to understand that the atmosphere you create gives you the results. Yeah. To a degree.
Absolutely. I think that shoot, I lost my This is live.
This is the magic of this is the live.
The magic of podcast.
This is the live of being like, Magic Live is Magic Live.
That's right. That's exactly right. I definitely. I think as a business owner and as a spiritual person and as somebody whose goal is to like help put magic into the hands of the people and again remind them of how magical and powerful that they are as individual people. The human in me gets sad and disappointed when a newbie walks into a shop that is not welcoming and not kind, and that breaks my heart a little bit because I feel like it deters them in some ways, and I have to trust the universe that they're going to get sent on a path wherever they are supposed to go.
Another one of my partners said last night that he's become the man that he needed to know. Like, he's an influence in a lot of our young members of our community. Look up to him a lot and talk to him a lot, my son included, and he's like, I'm the guy I needed to talk to and didn't get to. Yeah. And I think so the flip side is true too, is that a lot of folks who had that rejection in maybe a magical store or in a community, or like with people acting like they were above and therefore, not going to talk to you. I think a lot of folks have become the guide, the help, the acceptor, the gatherer, the like welcoming mat rather than the door. The slammed door is now the welcome mat. And I think that I'm seeing that from a lot of the millennial and, the next generations down, I think are doing a much better job of it. And so I have deep admiration of that work that they've put in.
Yeah, I think the space is growing like exponentially. And So I want to talk a little bit about ConVocation.
Let's go.
So can you share the story of how ConVocation began?
A little bit. I know that in 1995, a group of folks got together in this Ypsi, Ann Arbor area and said, let's do magic together, let's teach people, let's create community. And there was enough of them that they needed to do it at a hotel, right? And it started small, and they had some classes and some rituals, and it was a group of friends and their extended friends. And it grew from there, and it kept growing. They've moved, I think, 4 hotels before. We just moved last year to this one. So we've gone from like this area. I know there was one in, I think, Southfield for a while. They were in Troy for a while. We were in Dearborn when I joined, and now we're back in Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti. And it's grown from a small group of, 100-ish to hundreds, and now we can break up towards 1,000 every now and then, but we normally settle somewhere between 700 and 1,200 people coming, and hundreds of classes. This new hotel allows us to more classroom space, so we have more rituals and more sessions than we used to be able to.
Yeah.
But that's just structurally we're more able to now just because of the location. So it's gone through quite the path of different boards, different groups, but we're 30 years strong and still going.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And healthy, and that's an amazing legacy to have.
Yeah, you say that ConVocation is healthy. What do you mean by healthy?
Yeah, so I'm 2 years on the board now, but I was on staff for a few years, and I work a bunch of other events that are, whether they're in the Ren community, the steampunk community, the goth community, fairy festivals. I've seen them where I'll work for a few years and be like, this isn't a healthy community. There's infighting, there's drama, there's financial issues, there's lack of planning and not enough staffing. I got on this staff and I went, wow, there's a lot of staff. You guys, I guess, sleep. And it was a joke because a couple of the folks here work with me on another festival. Like, yeah, they also believe in stopping and peeing. And I was like, that's for the weak. But I mean, I say that and I make a joke, but honestly, it's healthy because we staff appropriately to make sure that people do the job without burning out.
Yeah.
There is so much spiritual work being done here that we have enough staff to carry the spiritual work, the physical work, the emotional work. And so we're a staff-heavy con so that our staff can do that and still attend class.
Yeah.
Because if our staff is out there with empty cups, that's not a good way to be. Our staff has their cups full.
Yeah.
They can go to a class, they can teach a class, they can be a part of it. And so that mixed with our amazing featured presenters and guests of honor, our headliners, bring people in. We joked last night at opening, we're like, the amount of raised hands when we said, who here is new? Our speakers go out and I'll say they proselytize, they preach the good word that this is a good con. And I've met at least 6 people and sat down at meals with 6 people this is their first year.
Yeah.
That's what keeps something healthy.
Yeah.
We honor our past, we honor our elders, our people, our founders, our folks that have held us down as a good anchoring, a good structural grounding. But without new blood, without young people, without folks from other conventions, without new speakers, without new guests of honor, without new vendors, it's the same thing every year. Nobody wants it.
Yeah.
So the fact that we explore a different theme every year, I think helps keep it new. But the fact that the community continues to renew itself is that, to me, it's healthy.
Yeah.
It's not clogged, it's not stagnant, but it isn't going so fast that it's ripping itself apart either.
Right.
So it's this beautiful ebb and flow.
Yeah, so I mean, before we sat down to talk, we were kind of mentioning that I've been in the witchcraft community in Michigan for 15 plus years or so, and I'd never heard of ConVocation. and I am farther up north for sure, but I didn't hear about it even until the second year I opened my business, and somebody brought me a flyer about this happening, and it was a shock and it was a surprise, and it was really nice to see. I attend Comic-Cons and stuff like that. I'm like, oh yeah, it's Comic-Con for witches.
It's Comic-Con for witches, yes.
It's so fun. So I was really excited about it, and then I was like, oh, I've never heard about this, and so I guess like to an extent for like natural growth, like if you were gonna post a billboard or if you were gonna like advertise like in an overt or extreme or over exuberant kind of way, you might not get the exact energy or attention that you're looking for.
We haven't put a lot of stock in advertising. It has been more word of mouth.
Yeah.
But we did in the last few years we've grown. One of our board members, Barb Stenger, has done a great job of putting out sponsorships, and the sponsors have helped us too, because think about it, they're helping us with funding, which helps us with flying in teachers, which helps us pay our bills to create more classrooms. We are the magical education council. So we're here to provide education. So that means we can sell books for authors and we give them the full price of it and we staff a room to do that.
Yeah.
We advertise more now through those sponsorships because they're seeing the value of what we do and how we are feeding the community.
Yeah.
We're feeding them through sales. We're feeding them through influence. We put 100 people in a room for them.
Yeah.
And so we haven't overtly advertised, but we have gotten better at our web presence thanks to some, again, new blood on the board. Barb Stenger came in the same year that I did. She does amazing work. We're doing more with it. I think it's time to, and so we're getting better at it, and I think we'll be a little bit less the best kept secret and instead a little bit more out there, because we want new blood. We want new folk coming in.
Yeah. I'm really excited to be here, and thank you for having me.
Of course.
No, you invited me specifically, but I appreciate being here. I appreciate getting picked up for programming. We are just like a little podcast in a little shop in Traverse City, and so
that's how it starts.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like this is a great stepping stone. I think this is our first live episode, and that's really exciting too. And I do have a couple more questions about ConVocation in general, but how does ConVocation play a role in shaping modern magical and spiritual practices through the years? Where our paganism perspectives are changing and growing all the time. But how does a convention like this
it's a great question.
act as a catalyst for change?
I'm going to change the word to crucible.
Okay.
It's the space where the catalyst works. So the way it does.
Alchemy is coming out.
Yeah, sorry, I'm an alchemist. So if you think about you're the catalyst, right? You are we're the crucible. We're just the vessel that we're the beaker.
Yeah.
And we're where the stuff happens. But the stuff, you have to put ingredients in there. You have to put agents in there. You have to heat it up. So what we are is a receptacle. We are a place where this can happen. But we're a safe place. Again, I go back to the staffing. You have to have the right amount of classrooms. You have to have hotel space. You have to have people thinking about, we have a hospitality suite. Almost no con offers food to the public anymore because hotels won't negotiate the contract. Our president, Maura Finkel, I don't know if you've ever tried to talk with her, but no, I can't say no to her. Mm-hmm. Neither can the hotel. So they let her we feed the community, literally, so that they can go to a classroom fueled to learn. But we then can pay for some of our speakers. We can't pay for all of them, but we can bring in new teachers. We can bring in headliners. We can bring in big names, small names. And a teacher who grew up here and went to school can teach a class their first time that they want to teach a class. And then we get their reviews and we go, hey, did you see how little so-and-so did? Let's bring them back. And you get a Jason Mankey, who is our homegrown hero. He started here. Yeah. And now he's Jason Mankey, right? And he brought half of the people, he advertises for us. So we are the crucible. He's an agent and then a catalyst for others. And so that's where you get him bringing in the Ivo Dominguez's and the Matt Orens and the Devin Hunters, the Benabel Wens, David Shee. We get these names because we gave someone like Jason, and I say we, I wasn't here, but we as a community helped create a space where someone could explore it, exchange ideas, get better, and then through their own good work, their own talent as writers and as thinkers, they publish a book that then gets read by someone in Des Moines who doesn't have a magical shop, who then comes to ConVocation, who then becomes the next Jason. Right. So we act as we are the crucible, and we bring in the elements and let the alchemy happen. We let the magic, whether you see it as an altar, whether you see it as a crucible, whether you see it as a long ritual. That's what we do. Yeah. And we do it with the lens of education so that we're always trying to get people here to learn and grow. And we even try to feed our teachers with that. We try to bring advanced classes so teachers can fill their cups.
Yeah, that's good. I think continuing education for everybody is always welcome and awesome. There's lots of things that I've changed in my magical practice since beginning, to where I am now. And I think that just again, opening hearts, opening minds to different perspectives. And again, that's where the dating comes in too, is that some of it works and some of it you take with a grain of salt and some of it you discard. If it's not serving you, then.
I think the other thing we do well is a diverse gathering, because some conventions are so rooted in one tradition or a couple of well-known traditions, and we are very committed to making sure that there is so many different things you can study here
Yeah.
that we don't, it's not like, well, I'm not going to that because that's not my path. I've had people complain because there's like 3 classes per session they want to go to.
Yeah. That's
And
a
so
problem.
like it's like, oh, I want to go to this Hellenistic journey of the hero, but I also want to go to this one about Malkuth as, you know, like tarot and princesses and the Sphinx, and I also want to go. And so we try to bring so many different ideas into one space that you're not stuck. And so I think that's part of the health too, is that we aren't one idea every year.
Yeah.
And it's not one community, it's all communities welcome. We have Satanists, we have Druids, we have, you know, like you name in a witchcraft organization, they're here.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and then any eclectic path, herbalists, I mean, down to the teen path of, you know, the D&D games that,
Yeah.
you know, my kid is helping run sometimes, and other, you know, my friends' kids are running. And so these different approaches so that so that we do create that experience of people feeling welcome in the door.
Yeah,
you know?
I think that's really awesome. I think a lot of people are deterred from trying different paths because it's not a part of their cultural background, or they just know nothing about it, and they just are never even heard of certain things. And so I think this is awesome that there's so many different modalities that you can just step into. I mean, like literally, it's like magic doors.
Yeah.
You know, like you just walk into a door with a different world and a different expert to teach you on all these different perspectives and different thoughts. And I just love that so much. I do have like a juicy question though.
Yeah, go for it.
Have there been any like particularly like controversial moments with
Yes.
ConVocation?
Yes. And I love this question. I will say as a board, we're pretty close, and I can speak that we are not afraid to talk about our scars, and we are not afraid to talk about our growth edges, like where we need to get better. I'm always the loudmouth about Detroit because I live in Detroit, and I'm like, we are not engaging the Black spiritual community in Detroit well.
Yeah.
It's not enough to say you're welcome to come. We need to make them feel welcome, not forced, not, you know, and so we have work to do there, and we are doing the work. Some of it is just, I shop at a lot of the stores there, and I have never told them I'm on the board for anything.
Yeah.
I want them to know who I am first.
Yeah.
Right? Aquil Dennison, one of my co-con chairs and one of the guys on the board, he is the head of our diversity committee because we do have a need to serve the community better, and he's doing an amazing job. They're taking the long work of defining diversity before deciding to just take any action. There's going to be some panels on that. There's a meeting of them here. We invite community feedback. We have had people get mad when we've had a white speaker of a Black, of an African tradition, who was invited, by the way, by local Detroit Black practitioners of that tradition. And then we had a war online of young white people telling us we were terrible for bringing a white man who was invited by the Black community, by the way. And so there was this whole war going online, and of course it's all just words online, but it caused heightened anxiety of our local Black speakers who are African American speakers who are literally the ones who brought this guy, being told that they did wrong. You know, and so it goes back to that, like, we have to be careful about those moments, and we want to listen to all voices, but it happens, and I can't say that we handled it the best way. I can't say we handled it badly. We handled it. Like, there was no violence at our convention. There were angry words. And there were people who won't come back because they were like, they're still mad that we allowed it to happen. We're like, we didn't just allow it. We listened to the voices of our community who said that they wanted this ritual. Why are you mad at us? So we have blinders? Could we do better? Could we? Yes, always. Always. And so come, give us feedback, or suggest, or tell one of your friends who's of a path you don't think is represented to apply to teach. Like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? We say no, and then you can say, hey, they rejected us. Great. Call us out. Make us better. Give us that candid feedback. We're going to mess up. But have we had controversy? Sure. In religious groups, are there leaders who shouldn't have been trusted with leadership because of the way they manipulated people? Yes. Have we had those? Yes. Have we had them on our board? Yes. Do we have inner jokes about, like, yes, we don't have private parties as board members, that's part of our scar tissue and our history. I won't pretend that we're some lily white, perfect, like, nope. There have been some bad people on our boards and good people on our boards and human people on our boards that are a perfect combination of both. And so what I want is for people to feel safe telling members of either the community or the board if they see something bad, so
Yeah.
that we can take the action to fix it. And if we don't, then hold us accountable.
Yeah, I think one of the things I was kind of struck by, we've just only arrived today, and I've only been here for like an hour and a half, and so in doing a loop, I saw multiple bright yellow stacks of feedback paper.
Yep.
And boxes that said, "Fill me out," right?
Yep.
And that I've never seen at any convention.
That and
ever.
on Sched, like the app where you do your thing, after each class, you can click the feedback button and give feedback on that direct teacher, and that comes to the teachers and the head of programming.
That's awesome.
So if someone is inappropriate in a class, we find out about it.
Yeah.
My feedback is always very
immediately.
funny because they're like, she speaks too much Czech.
There's worse things that they could
Yeah.
say, for sure. I do really appreciate that, and I think that speaks also to the health of ConVocation and the healthy growth, and I think just healthy, just spiritual growth in general. Like, I feel like we're all like kind of heading towards that vein of like just being more present and being more mindful and taking constructive criticism and learning to grow and healing our shadows and our traumas and our issues and trying to sit with those and let them not overwhelm us to the point where we lash out irrationally. Like
Absolutely.
some people
Couldn't
do.
say it better.
So this year, so you always have a theme
Mhm.
for ConVocation, and this year's theme is Malkuth, which is the final, or some may say the first, of the Sephirah. So that's part of the Kabbalah, the Jewish mysticism tradition of like the Tree of Life. And so Convo has used the Sephirot as a guide for its studies, and in 2025, this year, you complete the journey with
Yep.
Malkuth. Malkuth is unique because it emanates not from the divine, but from us, and it connects what is below to what is above, serving as a bridge between our everyday world and the greater cosmos. First or last? Is this first or last?
Ooh, you're asking somebody with a background in Kabbalah. So I'm gonna give the alchemical answer, and Chris Penzak just said something very similar. Is that it's both, because so if you believe that divine energy comes from above the top, which is Keter. So real quick on Convo, what they've done is before this they did a journey through the major arcana of the tarot, and every year they did a different one of the major arcana till they got to Crown. So they went from Crown in tarot over to Crown in Kabbalah and came down from Crown to Malkuth. So we're ending with it because we went Crown to Crown, two different
Gotcha.
systems. So this is a long study. This is boards years ago made
Yeah.
this decision. For me, in practice, Malkuth is where it starts from the practitioner's side,
Right.
because it is what we bring to our practice. It is how we show up ready to receive, ready to seek, ready to be curious. From a divine creation perspective, it is the final step to get to the creation. So it's both, and
Yeah.
it's a cop-out answer, but it's also
But it's also an answer.
but it's also an answer. Like, so from a practitioner standpoint, it's first. From a creator standpoint, it's last.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I love that. I guess, I go back to I'm having a very human experience, right? And so
Yes.
I'm like, it's first.
it's so, but it's that spark of divinity in the human experience that makes you pay attention to. It's the times that you see coincidence and stop saying it's coincidence and start seeing meaning.
Yeah.
It's the times you say, I'm ready to learn. It's the moment you show up and say, I am ready to say that I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah.
You
I love
know.
it. I love it. It's such a powerful and cool topic to get into, and I was allowed to go down a deep dive on the Kabbalah, which has always been something that I've always been drawn to, and I'm gonna kind of segue into another like controversial topic too.
Go for it.
So has this theme over the past 11 years created any controversy? So some argue that the Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism are closed practices.
Yeah. I have a hot take on closed practice.
Good.
So
I like hot takes on closed
yeah.
practices.
So I also have a cop-out answer because I have Jewish blood. So am I allowed to do it? But yes, because I have Jewish
Yes.
blood. Am I allowed to do it as a scholar? Yes, my fourth field doing my PhD was Jewish theology. Cool, that's great for me. Let's decenter me.
Yeah, but let's bring
What about
1,200 people
yeah,
in
what?
here. And
Cool. What about some kid who walked in and asked about Full Metal Alchemist?
Yeah.
Are they allowed to close practice? Yes. Yes, they are. Respectfully.
Why?
Why? Because to me, all practice is just a way of making form around what we don't understand or are seeking to understand. And so it is just a way to organize your brain around it. I go to different talks because they resonate with the way my brain, my emotion, myself understands it. Same with everybody else. Now, I understand the controversy of if you don't have the blood, you shouldn't do certain things. That's where I say it should be done respectfully.
Yes.
The controversial thing I'm going to say, I'm going to make a lot of people mad.
Bring it.
It doesn't mean you can't achieve the same things, though, if you have the will, the discipline, and the knowledge. And the white practitioner we brought in of African spiritualism was seen as someone who did the work, had the will, and knew enough to do it right.
Right.
So not everybody agrees with that.
Yeah.
I think that closed practice is a courtesy, or it is a custom, or maybe it's because culturally that is what you were raised with, so it resonates. But it can resonate with somebody else, and if they do the work and they do it well and they bring the will, can they achieve the results? I believe so.
Yeah, there's a caveat there, right? So it's like you have to apply yourself to it. And in northern Michigan, we live right at the base of a very wealthy peninsula with lots of vineyards and lots of very entitled white women who come in and they are like, I'm going to get this sage bundle because I'm going to go smudge my house today.
Yeah.
And I cringe every time, and I kind of hate it. And I usually try to step in with kind of a conversation about cultural appreciation versus appropriation.
Right.
And just like little nuggets of knowledge, right? Because again, this lady doesn't know what she doesn't know, right? And so I live in this world, I get hit with, that's closed practice, we're gatekeeping, we're whatever, all the time. And I pride myself in being objective and being able to step back and be like, okay, but why? Like I had a practitioner tell me I'm not allowed to use sage. And I said, okay, but why? And she said, because the Dakota and Lakota Indians say not to. And I said, okay, but why?
But why? Yeah.
And she was like, that should be good enough for you. And I was like, but it's not.
It's not.
I just need an answer. Like, help me understand. Is it sustainability? Is it that it's not being harvested in ceremony? Is it that it's not being used appropriately? Is it the rhetoric that we're using and how we're identifying it? Is it, what is it? What is it about this? And
be viciously curious.
Like everybody. Yes. Do you hear this? Meg says, be viciously curious.
Viciously curious.
I love it. I think that so often, and we live in the Midwest too, so we're like obnoxiously nice to everybody. So if somebody says no,
but you're not kind.
You're like, okay.
New Yorkers are not nice, but we're kind. You guys are. You're kind. You're nice. You're nice, but there's a lack of kindness. New Yorkers, they will be rude to you, but they will give you their shirt.
Yeah.
It's a weird cultural shift, and I see that here. And so, in what you're saying, like, be curious. Don't be entitled, like, but I'm going to do it because I want to. But be curious.
Yeah.
And it's okay. And I think, like, listen, I won't speak for things I don't have the blood for.
Sure.
And I think I know a lot of Jewish people who would be very angry. And I wasn't raised I was raised partially Jewish because it was Long Island and you can't help it. Temple every week. But like, I don't think I have the right to give that practice to anybody. I don't think one person has the right to, nor do they have the right to block it from anybody. So again, it comes down to, like you said, don't be a dick. That's a really good mantra. Like,
it really is.
Come at it with curiosity, openness, mindfulness, and when you hear that it could hurt someone to do it, then decide whether or not you still want to do it and what that means.
Yeah. And
you might now have a practice that you've got a little scar on within yourself because you know that it's hurting someone.
Yeah.
You accept that or you don't.
Yep.
And so are you open eye practicing or are you blind practicing? So for me, closed practice it's so complicated. All I ask is be curious and be honest. And I mean honest with yourself. If I'm doing this, should I be doing this? And if I can ask all these questions and the answers aren't pleasing to me, should I still not do it? Or should I do it, but know why? And there is no perfect answer to those things. Just keep asking them of yourself as viciously as you do the practice.
Good. That's good too. I think that's good. Like be viciously curious with yourself and your own practices. I love that so much. And I also, I appreciate that perspective because I do think that there are various perspectives of magic and spirituality, different paths that, just stepping into and listening to perspectives can give you a deeper meaning for your own practice. And not to steal little bits from here or there, but that's why we all say we're eclectic, right?
But that's what Chris Penczak just said. He's a scavenger.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yes. So we're just picking up little pieces.
Yeah, be a little Corvid about it. Ooh, shiny bit. I want that. It works.
Yeah.
And I'm an eclectic in everything I do. I make food that I break the rules of cooking all the time. It's like you can't put that with that. Want to bet?
Yeah, watch me.
Yeah, and then people are like, that was really good, and you're like, yeah, and it may not work the next time, but I think that know enough to know how to break the rules.
Yeah.
I know enough about cooking to know when and how I can break the rules. I know enough about practice that I do to know when I can say, I am pulling in this other practice into my alchemy because I know both well enough to know to do it well. And there are other times I go, I don't know anything about this. I'm going to try it anyway. And in both cases, I'm being honest about where I'm starting.
Yeah.
And so I might get good results from both or neither, but I know where I started and I know my intention. And I think that that's good enough.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that the academic in you also is always going to seek out the higher academic studies about different religious and theological perspectives before.
Yeah, but I'm also part Appalachian, so there's part of me that's just going to do it.
Wild.
We're just going to do it. When you said, sort of heathenry, I come also from Scotch Appalachian people where you're like, my will is all I need.
Yeah.
And so there's that.
Yeah.
Too. And so how do you take the eclectic mosaic that each of us is, the stories, the people who influence us, all of the different books we've read, the music, how do you take all of that and craft it into your magical self and your magical practice? And at some point you're gonna fuss someone. They're gonna be mad about the shirt you wore or the bracelet you bought or
everybody's pissed about something all the time.
And my choice in that is to, like you, say, why are you mad?
Yeah. But why?
But why?
I love that. I have a little anecdote I want to share about my daughter. So she came to me this Christmas and said, she's like, I think I want to celebrate Hanukkah this year.
Okay.
And I was like, great, cool. Let's go up to the Unitarian Church. Let's find everything we can about Judaism. Let's talk about it. And also why?
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 Why do you want to celebrate Hanukkah? And she's like, well, I kind of really want to play with a dreidel. And also 8 Days of Christmas sounds awesome. And I'm like, I get it.
I get it. That's an entrance in, though.
Yeah.
I don't find that offensive. I was mostly raised Christian. We had a menorah. Because we had Jewish family.
Yeah.
We didn't do it perfectly, but we did it observantly and honorably. And if your daughter wants in because the dreidel is like playing a cool dice game, we do not have time for the story of the Venerable Bede and the conversion of the British Christians and the way that they did it through syncretism. But let's just say syncretic change of religion is okay. Yeah. And if your daughter found meaning in it, maybe it just means when she sees a Jewish kid, she's going to be nicer to that Jewish kid and have curiosity about the dreidel. And the Jewish kid is going to find that they have a friend who knows about their traditions.
Yeah.
And they're going to feel more belonging. And to me, that's net good.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's a net good positive.
Absolutely. And that's where I say knowledge is power.
Yeah.
The more that you're exploring, the more that you're learning, the more that you're putting yourself out into different environments, the stronger that you are and the stronger that you can be for your community.
For sure.
So
tell her, l'chaim.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I love the I love the Kabbalah, and that's something I've always been really drawn to. And I will say this too, just very, very quick, because we are quickly approaching time. It goes so quickly.
Goes so fast.
I've always been drawn to Jewish traditions, and I don't have any Judaism that I can trace back to, but also my father was adopted, so I'm not really sure. But there's something vehemently inside of me that says that.
Can I tell you why?
In a past life.
Can I tell you why?
Yes, please.
You just said, but why? But why? But why? When you study, so one of the things in studying the Jewish traditions, if you study not Torah, which is the Bible, the Jewish Bible, Talmud, and then commentaries, you have a passage of the Talmud that will say, or Torah that will say, you must keep a commandment, keep the Sabbath holy. And then a commentary under it will be, to keep the Sabbath holy, eat fish. And then someone like you comes along and goes, but why? And then they say, because fish is delightful, and to keep the Sabbath holy, you need to be delighted, and so eat fish. And then another person comes along and says, but the Shlomiel selling me the fish just raised the price of the fish. It's not so delightful anymore. And the next commentary says, then don't buy fish. And then it makes a commandment against making prices higher on the Sabbath for fish. And this is why at the top of a Jewish, at the top of commentary, there's one sentence and a million passages after it because people kept asking, why? So I am drawn to it as well because my Jewish side of the family is where we yell a lot in complete agreement.
Yes.
Very passionately. There's something very passionate about Jewish spiritual practice when it's done through the Kabbalah and commentaries in general. So you are built to question, and so are Jewish theology. Like Jewish theologians questioned constantly. So you're built for it. That's why you're drawn to it, because it's something that's built into the kind of way you approach it. Vicious curiosity, and like, but then what? Or even if you've seen Fiddler on the Roof, right? Like, but on the other hand. But what about the other hand? What about that? What about that? And that is at the heart of, like, I love studying it with fellow scholars of it because it's literally just but what about?
Yeah.
Or but why? So it's exciting and it's academic, but it's also tangible. There's something in what the, Jewish practice brings. It's in the way that you light the candle and put the smoke over your eyes. It's in the way that you make the bread. It's in the way that you set the table. The intention is beautiful, and there's something ritualistic about it that I am drawn to because sometimes you want to do something methodically, intentionally, ceremonially. And so I think that so study it, enjoy it, go attend a Seder dinner, go sit Seder with a family that does it.
Yeah.
It is an amazing thing, and it changes how you approach it. And so I see the beauty in it.
Yeah.
I can see why you would see it, just meeting you just a few minutes ago. Yeah. You have a questioning mind and you get excited by the debate, not turned off by the debate.
Right.
And so that's why.
Yeah. There it is.
Run at it.
Thank you so much. Before we go, what kind of final messages would you like to share with, about ConVocation, community, Malkuth?
I would just say, be curious and you don't have to be super confident, but find just enough confidence to start a conversation. And if the conversation is uncomfortable, set a boundary, walk away, and find another conversation. Don't stop if something feels good, and don't stop if something feels bad. So keep finding paths forward. A book may turn you off. Many did for me. No footnotes, not reading it, right? But then I had to find something that did. And so my final thoughts are, our community is made up of, our board could not be more various and different in human being and personality and practice, but we find common ground in the joy of doing an intentional thing together in ConVocation. So find those places, talk to those people, and find the flavor and the path that sounds good and feels good, and then try something different to challenge yourself, right?
Yeah.
And so, and if, reach out. That's what Malkuth is. It's reaching out to find the path.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think that's why I'm resonating again with the human experience.
Yeah.
Just that's our stepping stone into the divine.
For sure.
I love that. To our listener who wrote in, community is everywhere. You just have to know where to look. Local metaphysical shops can be a fantastic gateway into the spiritual communities you seek. Also, I want to talk about the community within you. So say you have this love of cooking or tarot, and you're putting magic into it because you just started a magical tradition. You can bring others into that community space that you are creating within yourself without having to be hey, this is witchcraft. Right?
Yep.
So you can just invite somebody to cook with you. And so you're putting in a pinch of this or a dash of that, and you're doing it for protection or for healing or whatever that might be. That is magical to you. That's witchcraft to you. You don't have to be overtly hey, come do witchcraft with me, right? You can just invite somebody into your space or into your community. And then until you're ready to share, because you should be proud of who you are and what you're doing, and you should feel safe always. You should. But that's not always the case, and we understand that. I think that wherever music is, you'll find community for the most part. I did. Yeah.
I mean, I exercise my demons on the dance floor every week.
Yeah. Music and movement, I feel are great avenues for finding community. And when there's not community in music, that I get so disappointed.
Yes.
Very.
And I'll say, again, the goth community tends to have a bit of overlap with the witchcraft community.
Totally.
Our ball here is one of the DJs from one of the local clubs is our DJ for the ball. You'll find like-minded people in those spaces.
Yeah, absolutely. And my friend mentioned like music festivals and stuff.
Music
too,
festivals,
like,
great.
Trying to like open your mind and
Even like
whatever
Ren
may-
Fests. I know that's kind of, it's a different thing and you might run into different kind of people, but you find a lot of like-minded people in historical communities like
Yep.
that. Ren Fests are not historical at all, but I love them.
Right. They are a lot of fun though. And
I will
they're-
run around in a kilt, in a,
Yeah, any excuse to like get dressed up.
let me wear fur and drink mead and I am a happy person.
Right. Yes. Somebody shouting about a giant pickle.
Heck yeah.
I'm there for it. But I think in that same line too, like other nerd shops,
Yep.
like comic shops or Comic Cons, things like that. A lot of times, like historically, witches are the others.
Well, here
Right,
in
like
Detroit, we have in
oddballs.
Hamtramck, we have the Black Salt, which is a witchcraft-themed bar.
Yeah.
The owner gives Mother's Day off and all these days off, treats her people well. You walk in there and you know those people want to be there.
Yeah.
And you can get a ritual spell with your drink or not.
Yes.
And there's teas and there's mocktails, there's non-alcoholic, there's alcoholic, and there's always good music, and it's a community space.
Yeah.
Those are places you can walk into, and a lot of normal, like non-witch folk walk in there and leave and go, wait, I want to know more about this.
Yep.
So there are spaces where you can find it.
Yep, absolutely. So continue looking, open your eyes to like maybe some places that you might think are unconventional, like
Yeah.
like a bar.
A bar.
Yeah, and Black Salt is awesome.
It's an
And
amazing space.
The owner is amazing.
She is such a delight.
She's so
but
cool.
what makes her delightful is not just her knowledge and her intentionality, but how she treats her staff.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so good. Like every bartender there is well trained.
And happy.
Happy.
Yeah.
And I talked earlier in my talk about how I bartend, and bartending is alchemy to me. I am transmuting alcohol, but I am transmuting like when I see someone's shoulders come down after the first sip of one of my drinks, I have just done good work in the world.
Yes, you have.
And these bartenders there, my shoulders come right down every time.
Yep. Absolutely. So yeah, and then other magical places. So come to my shop.
Yeah, go to shops, patronize, and buy something. Even if it's a pack of incense, buy a pack of incense there.
I appreciate that. There's a lot of times when I give magical advice and get love in return,
Yes.
and that there's a sacred reciprocity in that for sure.
But buy the incense anyway.
Thanks, Meg.
You can't say it, I will.
So local metaphysical shops can be a fantastic gateway into your spiritual communities you seek, and larger events like this as well. So while they may require travel, they offer an unmatched sense of being seen and understood. And I think to feel seen and understood in a world that doesn't see and understand people often is such a magical and fantastic thing that ConVocation offers and that a lot of other cons offer too.
Yeah. I'll say one thing about con that we do too well is like you can buy your ticket, and if you're a little short on cash, you can do volunteer shifts and earn back your entire badge, and we will
Beautiful.
reimburse it. And that's another way to learn the community, because maybe you don't know what to do and where to go. By working with our staff, you are now automatically part of the doers.
Yeah.
And you get an automatic in, you start to speak the language. So this is a way to reimburse yourself, but also feed yourself into the community and give yourself purpose. I came in as a full member of staff because I was like, I don't know how to attend a thing. I have to have a radio on. I have to be patching something up. I've got to be solving a crisis. If you're built like that, come here, buy a ticket anyway, and then volunteer. And then you get in with, and then maybe you become staff, maybe you become a teacher, or maybe you come to a place where you can afford to come and pay full price. But we try to give people many options to come in. But what I've found about volunteering, it isn't just the money piece. So many volunteers have said, if I hadn't volunteered, I wouldn't have known what to do.
Yeah.
I'm not a social person. I wouldn't have known how to talk to people.
Yep.
Well, they have to talk to at least the head of volunteers and
Yep.
whoever they're volunteering for. And that gave them an automatic bond.
Yeah.
And that's so cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Just, I think that anytime you can, and that pushes them outside of their comfort zone.
Yeah. Creates
little bit.
belonging, though,
Yeah.
immediately. You are now one of us.
Yes. Yeah. And we want you.
And we want you.
We
yeah.
want you. We do. So keep searching, keep asking, keep connecting, listen to podcasts. I'm going to say it again. Listen to podcasts and read books, and most importantly, ask a witch, because we're here. We're here to help answer questions. Meg, do you have anything else to add?
No, this is delightful. I love the work you're doing.
Good. Thank you so much. If people wanted to find you, is there a place where people
Ooh,
can find you?
me personally or ConVocation? ConVocation you can find at convocation.org. So www.convocation.org. We have a Facebook page. Our Instagram isn't that active, but the Facebook page is, and ConVocation community is. If you want to find me, you can find me at meg.org. Raphoon, RAPHOON, at convocation.org.
Beautiful. That's perfect. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to our live audience.
Yay, audience.
All right, this has been Ask a Witch with Bellamy Black, live from ConVocation 2025. You can find us in person at our shop at 116 East Front Street in Traverse City, Michigan, or online wherever you get your podcast. Send us your questions, and until next time, blessed be.
This has been Ask a Witch with Bellamy Black, a podcast fueled by the curiosity of listeners like you. We have a strong presence on the World Wide Web. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Ask a Witch Bellamy. Check out our live recordings on our YouTube channel at Ask a Witch Bellamy. Handles are listed in the show notes. For a chance to meet Bellamy in person, visit Blessed Be Tea and Apothecary in Traverse City, Michigan.